And then there's a wardrobe like that you moved
Yeah, like our
outside
big
today.
wardrobe.
A big old wardrobe. And she opens the door and goes inside, and she's pushing the coats away to get way in the back so nobody will find her. And she keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, and then suddenly she's outside. And she's in this woods, and it's snowing out.
But because was that the wardrobe because did the witch make it disappear?
Well, it's a magical place, you see. It's like
It's called Narnia.
it's Narnia. It's a different country. So she walks around a little bit, and she's in the woods. She sees a lamppost,
And I think it's snowing, Grandpa.
and it's
cold.
snowing. And then she meets this strange creature that's half goat. His legs are like a goat, and he has a tail.
She might have
And then
an
his
idea.
upper body, he's a person. And he's walking along and he's carrying a package. And Lucy sees him and she looks at him. And he says, "Would you like to come home with me? It's very cold out here. I just got some supplies and you can have a cup of tea with me." So she goes to this person's house. What's his name?
Tumnus.
Mr. Tumnus. And
Where is it?
they have a nice little house, and she sits there and he makes some tea and they talk. And then she says, "Oh, it's time for me to go home." So she goes home. She goes back to the place. She goes into the woods and she's going through the bushes, and then suddenly she's touching coats. She's touching coats, and the door opens up and she's back in the wardrobe. And she gets out and she's in the room. And then she goes and sees her brothers and her sister, and she tells them what happened. And you know what? They don't believe her. They say, "Lucy, okay, that's funny, that's a joke, but that's enough now. Okay." And she
Stop
says,
pretending.
No, it's true. I was really there. And there was a man there named Mr. Tumnus, and he was half man and half goat, and I had some tea with him, and it was a very nice place, but it was cold, it was winter. And they sort of say, "Oh, Lucy, now come on, that's enough." They get worried about her, and nobody believes her. That's how the story starts.
And then they
Telling me?
And she gets so upset, and she starts to cry because they don't believe her, and she knows it's true. And they get upset because they're like, "What's wrong with Lucy? Why is she just making these funny stories up?" And then the next time she goes, she brings her brother Edmund, and he goes, and they go through the wardrobe.
Was Edmund grumpy?
He was kind of,
Yeah, he was being a little grumpy.
he was a little grumpy, and he wasn't very friendly.
Didn't he find it by himself and then he pretended
Oh
he
yeah,
didn't
and then
know?
they like
Follow
ran
her.
into each other.
Well, we don't want to tell the
They
whole
like found
story.
each other in Narnia, right?
Edmund was I think Lucy's brother was nice.
He
The
was.
biggest
have to
brother,
watch it.
Peter,
was very
he was the oldest. He was very nice, and Edmund was nice, but he just, you know how
He could be a
sometimes
little
people are
sweet.
nice, but then they can be bad too.
They can get grumpy.
He was more than
Kinda like
grumpy. He was kind
Aunt
of
Lizzie.
mean, and he didn't tell the truth.
Edmund,
He was kind of mean, and he didn't tell the truth.
Edmund,
Yeah, Edmund. And he didn't want to listen to what his big brother and his big sister told him. He didn't want to listen to them. What do they know? They're not the boss of me. That's what he was thinking. And he did what he wanted to do. And you know what happened to him? He ended up getting into trouble. Yeah.
Big trouble.
So that's the story. So it's very
but
interesting.
can you keep telling me?
And then we're going to find out at the end of the story, we find out what happens to the
They
whole
actually,
family.
I think, then all of the siblings go.
Mhm.
Peter and Susan and Edmund and Lucy, they all go. And they meet Mr. Tumnus, and they even meet a family of beavers.
But
And the
can you
beavers can talk.
Well, in this land of Narnia, you know what's happened to it? There's a witch.
Do you want to sit on Grandpa's lap?
There's a witch that lives there. And she has put a spell on the whole country. And you know what kind of spell it is? It's always winter. It's always winter. It's always cold. And she's the white witch because her face is very white. because she never gets any sun. She just stays in her castle. And she has some men that do what she tells them to do. And she doesn't let any of the animals, they all have to just stay inside, and they can't, there's no spring, there's no warm weather,
And there's never Christmas either.
no Christmas,
Even
Mozzarella.
and everything is frozen.
Do you want to get a knife from me?
But the people of Narnia, the animals believe that someday someone is gonna come and break the spell. Someone's gonna come and break the spell. And when they see Peter and Lucy and Edmund, and what's the big girl's name?
Susan.
And Susan, they think, hey, these are the people that are gonna break the spell. So the animals are very excited, but they're still afraid of the witch. You know why? Because she has a pack of wolves. And if she doesn't like one of the animals, you know what she does? She sends the wolves out to get them. Yeah. And then what the witch will do, if she sees an animal and the animal isn't very, if the animal doesn't do what the witch says, you know what she does? She puts a spell on the animal and turns the animal into stone. So the animal might be saying, no, I don't believe you. And then the witch will put a spell on the animal, and the animal will be like this. No, oh. It won't move. It'll just be frozen like that. And that's what happened to Mr. Tumnus. After Lucy left, the witch found out that he was talking to Lucy. And you know what they did? They came to his house and they put a spell on him. They turned him into stone. Wasn't that a sad thing? And the people were very afraid. But they still had hope. They believed that Peter and Susan and Edmund and Lucy were there to help them, and that they were going to break the spell of the mean witch. And that's how the story starts. Boy, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Well, it's a long story, Ella. We might have to save part for tomorrow.
Well, so I'm trying to think how it goes. So they meet a beaver, and the beaver says, he's a big beaver. He's about this high.
What is the name of the beaver?
I don't remember.
Is
And
it like my size?
he's like your
Yeah,
size,
he is like
but he's
Ella's
kind of
size.
chubbier and bigger. And he takes them.
He has a wife too. right?
Yeah, he says, come on, we've got to go. You can't stay out here because the witch is going to find you. Come to my den. So they follow him to the den, and they go into his house, and there's...
Because if the witch can find him and then is she going to put a stone on them?
She would turn them into stone, yes, that's what they're afraid of. So they make it to the beaver's house, to his lodge, and they go in, and the beaver's wife is there, Mrs. Beaver, and she's making them some supper, and they're eating, and then you know what happens? Peter looks around, and you know what he sees? His brother Edmund is gone. Edmund snuck out of the house. And he goes out back in the woods, and when he's walking, there's a sleigh that comes up, and it stops, and you know who's in it? The witch. And she says, who are you? And he says, my name is Edmund. And she says, would you like some chocolate, some kind of treats, Turkish delight? Would you like a Turkish delight? And that's some kind of very delicious
But is she
chocolate.
mean?
Well, she's mean, but she's pretending to be very nice to Edmund. So Edmund says, oh yes, I would like some Turkish delights. So she gives him some Turkish delights, and she says, come, you must be cold. Come up here on the sleigh with me. And he is kind of cold because he doesn't have a jacket. So he sits next to her, and she puts a blanket on him, and she gives him some delight, some Turkish delights. And then she starts to ask him questions. Like, Edmund, are you here by yourself? And he says, no, my brother is here and my two sisters. And he starts to tell her everything that she wants to know. And then she brings him back to the castle and says, oh, you could be a prince here. I'll take care of you and give you Turkish delights and anything you want. So he goes back with her. But you know what happens when he gets back to the castle? She puts him in jail. She puts him in jail and she's very mean to him. He doesn't get any more candy to eat, just bread and water. And there he is in jail. And now Edmund starts to think, what did I do? I should have listened to my big brother Peter and my sisters. I was so foolish, and now I'm in trouble here. I've told the queen, the wicked queen, about all of them, and they know that they're here, and now she's gonna go after them, and it's all my fault.
Poor Edmund.
And poor Edmund, he's very sorry. Has that ever happened to you? Where you do something wrong, and you know you did it wrong, and then you feel sorry? You wish you didn't do it? It's like maybe,
Maybe you got mad and
you got
whacked
mad, or
Lizzie
you
on the
didn't
head.
listen to your mom or your grandmother, and then you got in trouble, and then you think to yourself, oh boy, I wish I hadn't done that. That wasn't very nice of me. I shouldn't have been a naughty little girl, but I was. But you're sorry, right? And that's what Edmund was. He was very sorry. But it was too late, or was it? He was in the jail. He couldn't get out.
How were they gonna?
What is going to happen next? Maybe he'll get saved by his brothers, but we don't know. And I'm having a hard time remembering what happens next.
Because you know who has to come back, Ella? The lion. Aslan.
Aslan, they're waiting for Aslan. And
We're
Aslan,
butchering it.
Yeah.
what?
John said we're butchering
I was
this
doing
name.
that joke.
No, I didn't. That's doing a good job.
Aslan is a lion, and when he comes back, he can beat the wicked queen, the White Witch. But they don't know when he's
He
coming.
tricks her though.
But they
I'm
think he's
trying to
coming.
think what happens
You guys are
next.
just spoiling the
No.
whole stuff.
All
Well,
of
she'll
a
forget
sudden, you know
Well,
what
she won't forget
starts
it.
to
Not gonna
happen?
forget.
The weather starts to change. And all of a sudden, if you look up in the trees that are covered with snow, it starts to drip, drip, drip. And the sun starts to come out. And the animals look up and they say, the sun is coming out. We haven't seen the sun in so long. And they could feel the warmth on their cheeks, the warm sun. And the snow starts to melt. And then the water in the river, the ice starts to crack, starts to move up and down and break into pieces. And the ice starts to melt. And the waterfall that was all
And then
frozen,
what did the witch say?
she's getting nervous. She's wondering what's happening. My power isn't there because she had put a spell on the country. She had changed everything to winter. And now she's getting angry and she's getting more upset. And she knows she has to find Peter and Susan and Lucy and turn them to stone, or else all of her magic power will be gone. And she won't be the queen anymore. So she has to find them. So she sends out her wolves, and they're running fast, looking for Peter and Lucy and Susan. I'm trying to think what happens. We have to watch the movie together, okay? Because Grandpa hasn't watched it in a long time, and I can't remember. But it's a good one.
It is a good
Could
one. There's
read
some
the book,
scary
maybe.
parts though.
There
When Ella gets big, she can read it. When you learn how to read, you can read the books.
We can read the other books to her at night. There's another book, it's
What
called
was this written?
The Horse and His Boy.
But you told me this
Well,
story.
I can't remember much more of it, honey. We have to watch it. How about tomorrow? It might be kind of a cold day. We could watch the movie on television. And we could sit together because you're gonna probably have some questions. You're gonna say, who's that, Grandpa? And I'll say, oh, that's Lucy, and that's Peter, and that's Susan. And because it starts out, they're in England, and they're taking a train ride. They have to leave their mommy and their daddy, and they're very sad.
But can't you tell me the story?
And they have to go to the country. And they go to the country to an old house, and they live with an old man who's very nice. But you know what? There's a lady that lives in that house, and she's kind of like, takes care of the house. She's the housekeeper, and she's kind of grumpy and kind of mean. And she doesn't like these children running around in the house. And she has a lot of rules for them. They can't run, and they can't go into certain rooms. They just have to sit and read and be very quiet all the time. And they're children, they like to go out and play, and they play ball, and they run around outside. And then when they're in the house, they like to play hide and seek. They're having fun.
Can you start it over?
Yeah, and they're kind of scared of this housekeeper. And one day, she says, okay, now you children, I'm gonna have some guests over. Kind of like, remember that story about the kittens? About the rabbits, that the mama?
But can you start the story over? Because can you tell me when Lucy tries to get in a wardrobe?
Oh, yeah.
Can you start it over?
Okay. So the housekeeper is having a party for some of her friends, and she doesn't want the children to be running around the house. So they say, okay, we'll go upstairs and we'll play hide and seek, see? And I think it might be, maybe Peter or Edmund has to count and close his eyes. And then all the rest of them have to go run and hide. And they're running and hiding, and Lucy's the littlest one, so she's not so fast as a runner. And she's getting nervous because she can't find a hiding spot. So there's one room that they're not supposed to go into, but she's so afraid she's gonna get caught. She goes into the room, and it's empty. But on the other wall, on the other side of the room, there's a big wardrobe. And she thinks, oh, that'll be the perfect place for me to hide. So she runs over there, opens the door, and the wardrobe is full of coats. And she starts pushing the coats out of the way and going into the back of the wardrobe so nobody will see her in there behind the coats. And she keeps pushing the coats away. Further and further she goes in, and further and further. And then suddenly she's touching like branches from a tree. And she's like confused. She says, this doesn't make sense. And then suddenly she steps out into a little woods, and it's snowing, and it's cold.
There's a lamp.
And she's like, how did I get here? This is a different place. This is a different world. And she looks, and there's a lamppost right in the middle of the woods, and a little path, a little
How did
road.
that change?
I don't know how it changed. We don't know. It's kind of like, you know, when you read a nursery rhyme and you just don't know how it happened, but it did. It's kind of like that. It's just kind of an imaginary place. It's an imaginary story, but it's very real. And that's when she meets Mr. Tumnus. She's standing there, and suddenly she sees this man. Well, she thought he was a man, but he was half man and half goat. His legs were like, he had hooves on his he didn't have feet, he had hooves. And his legs were hairy like a goat and a tail. And he was walking along, and he was very polite and nice, and he stopped and he said, hello, who are you? And she said, my name is Lucy. And he said, oh, I'm Mr. Tumnus. Why don't you come back to my house and we'll have some tea together? I just went and got some nice, maybe some cake, and we'll have a nice cup of hot tea to keep us warm because it's cold out here. And that's what she did. She went to his house, and it was a house like right in a tree. It was a big round tree with a door in it. And she went inside, and it was nice and warm in there. And Mr. Tumnus made her some tea, and she sat down, and they had a nice little visit, and he was very nice. And then after a little while, she said, I have to go home. It's getting late. My brothers and sisters will be wondering where I was. So she went back to the woods where she came out, and she went back into the woods, and she started to walk through the bushes. And she was walking through the bushes, and then suddenly, you know what was hitting her in the head? Some clothes, some coats. And she moved the coats aside, and she walked through the coats, and then there was the door of the wardrobe, and she stepped out of the wardrobe. And she was back in the house. She was back in the house. And her brothers and sisters were all running. They were all hiding. Because you know what happens when you go into Narnia? Time stands still. So when you come back to Earth, you're exactly the same. No time has passed. Isn't that kind of strange?
No one can go where the witch is.
No, it's very hard to go where the witch is. Only certain people like Peter and Susan and Edmund and Lucy. They went through the wardrobe.
But why is the goat gonna go there?
Why is it hard to go there?
But why is the goat gonna go?
Well, she went there by accident. She didn't mean to go there. She was actually just going into the wardrobe to hide. But then it turned out it was more than just the wardrobe, wasn't it?
But why did Edmund try to go where the witch was?
Why did he want to go with the witch? Well, because she tempted him. She said, I have some nice Turkish delights for you. Just like you, if you saw a person and they said, oh, who are you, little girl? Why don't you come with me? I have some nice jelly beans for you to eat. Or I have some nice chocolate pudding. You wouldn't go with them, right? Mm-mm. But you might be tempted. You might think, ooh, I would like those jelly beans. And you might think, oh, that person seems very nice. But don't do it, okay? You run back to your mama or your grandmother or your Aunt Liz. Don't go with anybody, okay? Because they might not be nice. They might be kind of mean.
Like the witch.
And they might be just trying to trick you and catch you and give you something like jelly beans, but they're not really nice. But Edmund made that mistake, didn't he?
But can't you probably
So when he saw that witch, and she said, how would you like some Turkish delights? He thought, oh boy, I would love some Turkish delights.
What's your go again?
Oh, let's see now, where could we start from? Oh,
When Lucy finds the
Right.
wardrobe.
when she comes back. So then she came back and she started to tell them the story about where she was. She said, I found a strange place. It was snowing there, and I met a very nice little person, Mr. Tumnus, and I went to his house and we had some tea, and the brothers and sisters were saying, Lucy, we're playing hide and seek now. Why are you telling us this funny story? And she said, it's not a story. It really happened. I really went there, and I really saw this Mr. Tumnus. And they said, oh, come on now, Lucy, that's silly. It's just a wardrobe. And they looked in the wardrobe and they didn't see anything, and they didn't believe her. And she was very upset. She said, it's true, I was really there. And they said, no, Lucy, now come on. You shouldn't be it's fun to make up stories, but you have to tell us, you really can't believe this. This is too much. And she got so upset, and you know what happened? She started to cry, didn't she? Because she was so frustrated. Like, you know, when you get frustrated, you're trying to put on your shoe and you can't get it on, and you just get frustrated and you get mad and you start to cry. That's what happened to poor little Lucy. She said, you have to believe me. You have to believe me. It really is true. And they said, now come on, Lucy, let's not talk about it anymore. And she said, no, and she couldn't accept it. And she started to cry, and she ran off to her bedroom, and she jumped on her bed and cried. Why wouldn't they believe her? Why wouldn't her older brothers and sister believe her? And she was very upset. That is very upsetting, isn't it? When a little girl tries to tell an older person something and they don't believe her. Oh, she was so sad. But the brothers and sisters, they didn't know really. It wasn't really their fault. And then they talked to the old man that lived in the house. And they said, we don't know what to do with Lucy. She keeps telling this strange story about going in the wardrobe and going to a strange land. And we don't know. We don't know. She just won't stop telling us. And she keeps telling us it's true. And she gets so upset. And they thought the man would say something different than what he said. And he said, well, maybe she's telling the truth. Do you know what truth is? And they said, well, it doesn't make sense. And he said, well, sometimes the truth doesn't make sense. You might want to believe your sister. And they looked at him and they were kind of puzzled because they thought, we never thought of that, but that's impossible. But it was true, wasn't it? The old man was right, because that was his house. That was his house. He knew there was something very special about that wardrobe, that it was a doorway into a very strange and wonderful place called Narnia. Oh, what an adventure they were going to have. What a nice adventure. Oh, you know what, Eleanor? I'm getting super sleepy. And I think I might be going to bed pretty soon. And I'm going to be thinking about this when I go to bed. And I'm going to be thinking, like, tomorrow we're going to watch this movie together. And we're going to have a good time. And you'll be watching it, and you'll be asking questions. And you'll like little Lucy. She's a cute little girl. She's a little bit like you. She's very cute and very nice, and she has brown hair, and I think she has brown eyes. And she loves to play, and she's very smart. Where did everybody go?
She's out here, baby. She's doing a little homework.
She's doing homework.
Where's everybody?
Well, Liz is right here, and Grandma's over there looking at her phone,
And you're right here, and then I'm right here.
and we're right here. We didn't go anywhere,
And
did
then
we?
Naomi's upstairs, and then Mommy's right in.
Oh, careful. Ooh.
Good job.
I can't remember how the story went after